welcome back to the Queens of the Damned podcast. We are discussing feminist horror movies this week, and we're really excited to do that. We have just one announcement before we get going, and it's that our Patreon has finally been launched. So you can go, you can go on there, you can donate. I think it's $1, $3, $5, or $10. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 5. Some you can do different something increments. Like yeah. So if you are enjoying this in any capacity, whether you're getting an education from it or whether it's just kind of amusing to you, then consider donating to us. There are perks for every donation, and we think they're pretty awesome perks. So go on there. I think it's patreon.com/QOTD podcast. But if you do a regular Google search, you should be able to find it. So I am going to kick things off today with the film American Mary by the Soska sisters. I guess if people don't know who the Soska sisters are, they're identical twins. They're Canadian. They're known as the Twisted Sisters. And correct me if I'm wrong, they're probably one of the only, or two of the only female directors in horror. Like, or at least very popular ones.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more that we don't ever hear about, but yeah they're probably...
They've gotten a lot of publicity, but they're into, like, grindhouse films, and they're inspired by Robert Rodriguez. Let's all say it together. The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue.
Guillermo del Toro for you last week.
I cannot say Guillermo del Toro. Now I said it. So they're inspired by directors like Robert Rodriguez, and I think Tarantino was on that list. I'm not sure.
I mean, you can definitely see the Tarantino influences, I think.
You can. And they've actually been compared to Hitchcock in their styles, which I don't know if I agree with that, but that's pretty impressive if people are comparing them that way. I understandably chose this as a feminist horror movie, not just because they were female directors, but it's a body horror movie. It comments on body modification, which the sisters are really interested in, although they don't have any, like, extreme modifications of their own. I think I'm just going to summarize the plot a little bit because the plot informs the feminist message so much, especially details of the plot. The movie was written with the actress Katharine Isabelle in mind for the lead of Mary, and she was Ginger in Ginger Snaps, which it took me 2 views of this film to realize. I don't know why. I mean, she has black hair now. I can't recognize her. What? I don't understand. Oh, also, she was like 10 years older, I think, when she did this.
I was going to say, she's quite a bit older now than she was.
It's great that they really wrote this script with her in mind because she has such a gift with dry humor and just not reacting, to make things funny, which it worked so beautifully in this film. And so Katharine Isabelle plays Mary, who's a medical student. She wants to become a surgeon. The movie starts with her in her kind of shitty apartment, and she's dissecting a turkey, like a raw turkey from the grocery store. And she's, like, suturing it back up, and Ave Maria is playing in the background.
Of course.
So this is the kind of film that this is. She's kind of struggling in her classes because she has a bunch of misogynistic professors.
Oh my God.
And she's sitting in a lecture, and she, as we all do, occasionally, like, answers a text. Mm-hmm. She's sitting up front. And the professor starts grilling her and everything, and she knows all the answers, of course. And after class, she comes up to him to say, "I'm really sorry, I'm embarrassed about that." Like any good person would do, really. That she went out of her way to apologize for a little thing. And he says, good, because he has enough useless fucking twats in his class.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is the level of just blatant misogyny he's allowed to display in his profession. She has no money. She's desperate for money. She's easily the brightest student there. She just has a natural gift for what she's doing. And she's looking at a shady Craigslist ad one day, and she decides to answer it because she wants to become a stripper for some easy cash. She goes to the club, and of course the guy who owns it is a total sleazeball. She gives him her resume, and she's told that, you know, there's a lot of impressive schooling on this and everything, and she's like, basically like, I have to eat too. And then he gets a call. He realizes that she wants to become a surgeon, so he calls her into the basement where a man who has been tortured is laying with, like, he's missing an eye and everything, and he's like, I'll give you like $10,000 right now just to save his life, because I don't want to get in trouble. And she does it. And she comes home, and she's, like, shaken, and she takes a shower. And so begins the narrative of her kind of hopping into the shower to, like, wash off trauma of dealing with shitty men. Mm-hmm. Like, she just, every time something bad happens to her from now on, she gets in the shower and just tries to wash it all off. And then this woman gets a hold of her. And it's this woman who looks exactly like Betty Boop and acts exactly like her.
Interesting.
It's such a bizarre movie, too. She has...
Strange.
Yeah, I know, it's so strange. And then the woman who plays her does such a great job. She has that, like, Harley Quinn voice going on and everything. And she says, my friend is in a pickle and really needs a surgery. She's a woman who wants to look exactly like a Barbie doll. She's just... like,
oh my gosh.
I wish I had a picture of her so you could see, like, all the plastic surgery that's been done on her. Her face doesn't even move anymore.
Wow.
And she wants Mary to cut off her nipples and sew up her, I guess I would just say sew up her vulva, you know.
Like sew her labia closed.
Her labia. Should know this. Sew her labia shut. And Mary... is wondering why she wants to do this, of course, and she says, a doll can be naked and never feel shy or sexualized or degraded.
That's depressing.
She doesn't want men to look at her like an object anymore.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it's sad. It's very sad. So she does this shady as shit operation in a vet clinic after hours, and the woman's fine and everything. At first, she doesn't want to do this, but then she quits med school after a while, and she starts doing it full time. And she'll do it for 10, 15 grand a pop, just to...
Wow.
Whatever people want. She'll split their tongues, she'll give them horns, she'll do whatever they want. And this kind of comes about when she is invited to this party by her professor. Says, you know, a couple people are getting together to have a drink, and we wondered, as a good student, if you would come. And so she dolls herself up, and she's really trying to impress them. She goes to this, like, impressive loft and everything, and all the male professors are there. And she starts talking to one of them about being a surgeon, and he's obviously, like, high on something, and he's going, I'm a fucking motherfucker. Seriously. I cut people up for a living. And he starts laughing, like, maniacally. And it's kind of this comment, because this profession requires a coldness that Mary perfects. Mm-hmm. At the party, she's drugged and raped. Oh, and God. You see the whole thing by that professor who called her out in class for texting. She goes home the next day, and her face... it's just dead. Like, and that's when she decides to quit med school and do this full time. She remembers the professor saying to her that night she was raped, you have to think for yourself, Mary. No one is going to hold your hand through this life. So she decides to leave everything behind and do the plastic surgery thing. Or body modification thing. Same thing. When she comes back from this party, she leaves the apartment door open, just wide open, and goes into the shower because nothing worse can happen to her now. And she's like a changed person. She eventually has the strip club owner who has become a friend of hers. He's like the least bad male she knows, which really kind of informs the kind of men that she knows. And she has him kidnap the professor that raped her. And she does some experiments to learn how to do body modification on him. She splits his tongue, she gives him horns, she files his teeth down, she cuts all of his limbs off, and he's just hanging there like by a meat hook by the skin on his back. Gosh. I think this definitely keys in on the fact that rape is a violent act that has nothing really to do with sex. And it transfers the violence and the self-loathing of the perpetrator over to the victim. And then she acts out that violence and self-loathing.
Yeah.
And there's a point in this movie where you can't blame her for doing what she does. You're going, yeah, what is it? There's a quote here. Oh, okay, so he's trying to talk to her and everything. And he's, like, hanging on that hook, and she goes, I couldn't hear you because your mouth is sewed shut, which I really love. But basically, since he can't feel internally what she went through when she got raped, she's giving him the real external pain that she experienced internally of the rape, and she's attempting to translate that as best as she can. You're kind of, I mean, you're on her side because it's just this awful thing that happens to her, and there's no recourse for it. Like, if she had reported the rape, what? I mean, what? Would he have even gone to jail? Would they believe?
No, most of the time,
I don't know.
even happens.
He probably, they do. The cops find out eventually that he's doing this to multiple women and try to interview about her about it, but she has him, locked away in the basement of the strip club at that time. So she says, no, that's not me in the video or whatever. It's just over and over after this, like, this series of images of male violence, like, male sexualized violence towards women. She, the strip club owner is, like, daydreaming, and he's hallucinating that Mary is doing a striptease, and she pours a glass of blood over herself because, what he really wants isn't the sex. What he wants is violence towards her, and that's kind of the message through the whole thing. And then it takes a turn where a cop finds out that the professor's down there, and he's like, holy shit, man, we'll get you some help, you'll be okay. Well, she kills the cop.
Yeah.
Now you're going, there's a moral conundrum. It's like, she's in a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
She's not just put herself in a lose-lose situation, but society has put her there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other guys that kind of express opinions that, like, the bouncer at the strip club, who's kind of her main bouncer for her, like, body modification thing. He says, you don't need to feel guilty. You make sure they deserve it, and don't waste a minute of your time thinking about them after you're done. So, I don't know. Like, okay, so I want to open up a question about, like, where does morality come in here? Like, at one hand, I'm like, it's totally terrible to do all those things she did to that guy, to that man. He could have gotten arrested and gone through a trial and maybe gone to jail for a few years, or to prison for a few years. Or she could take care of it herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think that's just it's a psychopathic thing to do, but...
Well, we kind of talked about this, I think, when we first started this show, about women getting back. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I remember us having a conversation about this.
We were talking about I Spit on Your Grave.
We may have been. And Dolores Claiborne, I think, because she throws the husband down the well.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's up here?
Well, this is like, this situation seems to be a more common narrative in horror, I'm finding. I mean, I never noticed it before, but I'm finding it's becoming more common. And I keep thinking about Big Driver from Full Dark, No Stars.
Yes.
And I think the whole question of morality is hard because it is the horror genre. To me, it's like what you're seeing is what internally you really want, Because women in this situation really have no power. I mean, people say, well, just go to the cops, but half the time nothing happens, So, in Big Driver, she basically she's thinking about it, and she decides they're not going to do shit.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? They're not going to do anything. And so she takes the situation into her own hands. And you see the same thing here. And I think it's just, the question of morality, like I said, is really, really hard, because I think it's more of a representation of what people feel internally, like, I just want to take it into my own hands.
It's definitely like a form of wish fulfillment, I think. I mean, there's a difference between American Mary and I Spit on Your Grave. I mean, American Mary is made from a female perspective. They don't treat the rape as like this. I mean, they don't.
It's not a voyeuristic thing.
I mean, the rape isn't super graphic, is it?
It's hard for me to say because to me it hits it every time. It makes me panic to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as skin, no, there's none. But it's awful. Like, it's just awfully portrayed.
Right. Whereas, like, I Spit on Your Grave, I mean, first of all, it's a gang rape, so it goes on for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's very focused on, like, the physical act of it. Like, horrified shots of people's faces and skin. And so that, I mean, that movie was exploiting the rape and then has the revenge aspect. But it's not really about the woman. It's about the men watching the movie. Whereas this is about the woman and the women watching the movie. I mean, stuff like this does happen in real life. I mean, you hear those stories of, you know, fathers finding some guy molesting their kid and they beat the shit out of the guy or kill the guy or whatever. And I think it's a morally gray area. I mean, on one hand, like, can I say that I wouldn't do that? No.
Yeah.
Because I probably would.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, should you take vigilante justice into your own hands? No, you shouldn't.
Right.
That's wrong.
With Big Driver, I think, doesn't he dump her into this pit with, like, bodies of other women?
Yeah, he puts her into a sewer.
Yeah, I mean, Big Driver's, like, super extreme.
There's that where, I mean, when she goes back to kill him, you're like, well, he's killed 20 women, and I mean, of course she could have gotten away and gone and reported it, but then she would have lived in fear her whole life.
Right.
So there's, like, a practical aspect to it. Like, what, is he gonna come back? Does he know? Well, I guess she was on a road trip. She wasn't where... But I don't know. It's been so long, but it's like practically if he has her driver's license and her address and everything, and he comes back for more, like, she has to eliminate that.
Yeah. But. Well, and it's like it's the same thing with abuse. Women in just like physically or emotionally abusive relationships. You know, people are always saying, "Well, why can't they just leave?" And it's that vengeance. It's okay. I could say something, but they're not going to get a lot of time in jail, even if they do go. And when they come back, they're going to kill me. You know, and I took a forgiveness class.
God, I need that.
Which was awful. It was so bad. But I think one of the best things that I got out of it was a part of this book. It's called Beyond Revenge. I can't remember who the author is, but it's a really popular book. But he talks about in the section how it is a government's responsibility to deliver vengeance on its own and to keep its people from having to do it on its own. And so in a society where a lot of people feel like the government handles that for themselves, for women, it's a totally different story because there's no trust there. There's just no trust. You don't know what you can do. You don't know what you can say or who you can say it to.
And for minorities as well. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. I mean, and like Miranda said, it's definitely something you see in horror a lot. That idea. I mean, it was even in American Horror Story. What season was it? The third season? Where Emma Roberts' character gets gang raped.
Yeah.
And then she flips the bus and kills all those boys. I mean, did they deserve it? Yeah. But was it right? I don't know.
Well, and also she killed Evan Peters' innocent character.
Yeah.
So, you know, they weren't all involved. At the end, and I'm gonna give that away, so don't bitch about spoilers. I mean, I don't know. The boyfriend of the Barbie, you know, finds out who Mary is, and he's pissed because he doesn't have a sex toy anymore, basically. And he comes in and stabs her, and she kills him, and she's crawling, like, basically she crawls over to her operating table and she starts stitching herself up, and it's kind of ends where it begins, where she kind of, to me, becomes the the turkey.
Oh, interesting.
And that kind of, to me, said, and you can read into this or not all you want, to me it said, it doesn't matter that she got revenge because the thing still happened to her.
Yeah.
And she's, to society, to these people who have power, a piece of meat. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yeah.
And she cannot erase that. She can't erase what happened to her, and she can't erase, like, she can't change societal views. So,
yeah.
It's not a happy ending. But
no.
They rarely are in horror movies, so.
Yeah, it's true.
But I think it makes a powerful point about the way we look at women in society, and that we're doing fuck all about it. And oftentimes we think we're helping, and we're just making it worse. Mm-hmm. So, that's my piece. I hope everyone else's movies are joyful and
I think it was a good pick. I mean, there are certain things that are uncomfortable to talk about, yes, but that means they need to be talked about more, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. And I think people they do. They skirt around the topic of rape, and that's the problem, is that nobody wants to talk about it. And so, I don't know, I think it's important that we do talk about it, especially because it does happen a lot in horror, unfortunately.
I just read this memoir called After Silence, A Rape in My Journey Back by Nancy Rain. She had this is a very strange case. She took out her garbage one day, left the back door open, and a man snuck in and sneaked in. Sorry, I don't know grammar. The man rapes her for 3 hours and leaves, and they never catch him.
Wow.
And it's about how she internalized the shame of what happened to her and the guilt, and how she tried to talk to other women and felt she couldn't because it was she had what she said she called this woman in the amber necklace at a dinner party. She had published an essay about the rape before the book, and the lady said, I read your article, it was very good, and she said thank you. And then the woman in the necklace said, but let's face it, no one wants to talk about such terrible things. And this haunted her forever, and she just... I recommend that everyone read this memoir because it really just gets into what it feels like. And there's no good solution to it. It's always something that you're just going to have to learn to live with. You're never going to be the same person again, and you're going to have to deal with... I mean, there will be really supportive people, and a lot of those people will be ones that it's happened to, and there are a lot of those out there that you didn't know before it happened to you, and then you talk to people, and then they go, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah, but then you're going to run into people who don't understand, and of course, and she's saying, I understand that they don't understand, because they want to deflect those horrible feelings from themselves. They are empathizing, and they don't want to go through that with you, because it's an awful thing. Yeah. But she's saying that this is something we need to talk about, as you were saying, is the more uncomfortable it makes us, because if we don't talk about it, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we're just going to stuff down the guilt and the shame, and for something we shouldn't feel guilty for.
Right.
But,
right.
Such is life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm done talking. I'm sorry.
No. It is a good movie. I'd say it's not a movie for everyone. It is really violent.
Yeah.
Is my only thing with it is I usually, because, I know a lot of people who really like horror movies that can't do, super violent horror movies, and this one is. So that's just the only thing I always tell people about it, but I liked it.
Yeah. You need to watch it.
I watch it, but then, it's something it's not a movie you're gonna watch over and over again.
I think it's on Shudder.
Yeah, I think it is. I think I saw it on there.
I believe that it is on Shudder.
And I can't believe that I didn't remember it being as violent as when I first saw it. When I first saw it, I didn't remember it being as violent.
Oh, yeah.
As this time, it smacked me in the face, so, yeah. So, watch it, but be, trigger warnings. I should have said something before I started talking about this, but that's a whole other conversation that we don't have time for. Don't watch the movie if you're going to get triggered by it, and just know that it's going to happen. So. Okay, somebody else talk about something else.
My pick is The Company of Wolves, which is a 1984 British horror movie. It's directed by Neil Jordan. It's based on a short story by Angela Carter from The Bloody Chamber. And I know that Nikki has talked about an Angela Carter story from The Bloody Chamber before. This one is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. The movie was written by Angela Carter and the director. It doesn't star that many people that, like, I had ever heard of, but Angela Lansbury does play the grandma, which is great because she's always fabulous. So the movie is about this girl named Rosaline, and it's kind of a story within a story. So it takes place in the present day, which of course in this case is the 80s. She's being kind of bullied by her sister, her older sister, who's of course really beautiful. She's being bullied because she's Rosaline is 14, I believe, in this movie. And so she's kind of caught between being a child and being an adult. She wants to wear makeup, but she and her sister have a big fight because she won't wear a fancy dress to a party. She wants to keep wearing her kind of more casual kids' party clothes, right? She goes to her room and she falls asleep. And she starts to dream about living in kind of this medieval world, I guess you could say. And in this world, her sister has just been killed by a wolf. Rosaline goes to stay with her grandmother because her parents are grieving. And when she gets to her grandmother's house, her grandmother is knitting her a red cloak, which of course, Little Red Riding Hood. And her grandmother tells her two stories. So in the first story, there's a young bride whose husband goes missing on their wedding night. Their union is never consummated, so legally, in those times, they wouldn't really have been married. So the bride ends up getting remarried and has children, but finds herself pretty unhappy with her life. I mean, she just kind of stays at home, takes care of her kids. And one day, her first husband comes back, and he looks exactly the same. So he is not aged in the, let's say, like 10 years since he went missing. And he turns into a wolf right in front of her, and the transformation scene is super gory. It reminds me, I don't know if you guys have ever seen An American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was just thinking of.
Yeah. Love that film.
It's that good. Because that's one of the greatest werewolf transformation scenes. It's just like that. Just before the first husband is about to eat the wife, the second husband comes home and decapitates him with an axe. And his blood spatters into this bucket of milk, which of course is very symbolic of the wife kind of losing her innocence by seeing this. But of course, the second husband blames the wife and says, well, if you weren't so wicked, he wouldn't have come back and tried to attack you. So Rosaline basically tells her grandmother, why is this happening? Like, how could the woman be blamed? And her grandmother tells her, basically, domestic violence is strictly human. Animals don't do it. So that's why the wife was blamed. But in nature, that's not the way it should be. And so she tells Rosaline that she needs to watch out for a man whose eyebrows meet.
Yeah, of course. Like, dude.
Yes. So, the second story she tells her about is about the devil. So the devil pulls up in a Rolls Royce, and he sells this young boy a potion that basically makes him go through puberty. But the punishment for this is that he is trapped in the forest forever with his legs bound by vines. And the moral of this story is that Rosaline should stay away from naked men in the woods. So Rosaline leaves her grandmother's house after hearing these two stories, and she walks through the woods with this local boy, and he's really being forward with her, hitting on her. And so she climbs this tree to get away with him. And in the tree, she finds a bird's nest filled with makeup, a mirror, and robin's eggs. And the eggs hatch to reveal fetuses inside. Miranda looks horrified.
Yeah, what the heck?
Are you looking at it?
No, I'm looking at this concept art of the wolf coming out. Well, you can't see it. The wolf coming
cool.
out of the man's mouth.
Yeah,
great.
That's the movie poster.
Great.
Yeah, so when Rosalind gets home, her mother gives her a bath. You know, of course, Rosalind is too old for this, but her parents are still treating her like a child. And so she decides to go back to her granny's house where she's at least treated like an adult. And in the woods, she meets this huntsman who, of course, has a unibrow. Uh-oh. We've been warned about him. The huntsman gives her alcohol and basically makes fun of her for believing all of these old wives' tales that her granny has told her. And clearly there is some attraction there. I mean, he's quite a bit older than her, but she's obviously thinks he's really handsome. And so he bets her that he can beat her to her grandmother's house. Like, they're going to race. And so she goes along with it. And of course, he arrives first. And when he comes storming in, the grandmother says, "What have you done with my granddaughter?" And he says nothing she didn't want. He kills the grandmother. When Rosalind arrives, she realizes what has happened, and the huntsman tries to seduce her again, but fails. She picks up the huntsman's gun, makes him strip, and shoots him in the chest, and he transforms into a werewolf. But she starts to feel bad for him because, you know, he's a living creature that she's killed, or he's dying. And so she sits with him and tells him one last story. She tells him about a wolf who tries to join the real world, but goes back to the underworld because the real world won't accept her for who she is. And as she's telling this story, the villagers come to the cottage, and they find that as she has told this story, Rosaline has turned into a werewolf, basically becoming the wolf in the story that she just told the huntsman, the lone she-wolf, who can't be part of a wolf pack, but also can't belong in the real world. So then we flash back to the present day, and this is basically how the movie ends. Wolves come crashing through Rosaline's bedroom window and destroy only her childish things, so her dolls and that kind of thing, while she screams, and that's how the movie ends. So basically the point of this movie is to take Little Red Riding Hood and transfer the power to the women in the story. I mean, the people who have the most power in this movie are Rosaline and her granny. The wolf, really, as it turns out, is pretty helpless. I mean, she just picks up his gun and shoots him. I mean, he can't even defend himself. And it's also about, obviously, the transformation from childhood into womanhood, and how it's kind of this unique journey. I mean, on one hand, you're expected to be like a little girl for a certain amount of time, but, you know, you might not be ready to be an adult, but once you go through puberty and you get boobs and you get hips, society starts to see you that way and treat you that way, whether you're ready for it or not. I mean, I read Tina Fey's autobiography a few years ago, and she has this one story about being in some women's studies class, I think, in college. And she said, you know, in this class, it's women of all different races and backgrounds and ages and all that kind of thing. And the professor has them sit in a circle, and she asked them, when did you realize that you were a woman and not a little girl? And every single person in the class said it was the first time that she was catcalled.
God.
Because, of course, even though in their case, and Frank, I mean, I developed very early. So in my case, I mean, I was a child. I remember walking home from school in 7th grade, so I would have been at the most 13, and having grown men hang out their car windows, honking at me and shouting at me. I mean, I'm a little kid. So that's kind of the big message of this movie, is how Rosaline Eileen was not necessarily ready to be an adult, but because she had reached a certain age, society began to expect her to act that way and treat her that way. And that's kind of I think that's a big theme in Angela Carter's work, is sort of how society just sexualizes girls at a young age. And yeah, I don't know. This movie's really great. Have either of you guys seen it? It's
No.
so good.
So we can't just shake our heads.
It's so good. And it's beautifully done. Like, the special effects are amazing, the sets, the costumes. It's just a gorgeous movie to look at in general. But yeah, that's why I picked it. I just love it.
Is the short story, is it much, it's quite different, isn't it? It's in
yes.
the Bloody Chamber, right?
It is quite different. I guess that Angela Carter originally had written a screenplay that was closer to the original, but then she went back in with the director and she rewrote it. Okay. But yeah, it's a really good examination of just kind of those, and frankly, a lot of the themes from the original Little Red Riding Hood story. I mean, I know in the original version, which didn't end up getting published, with Grimm's Fairy Tales, she performed striptease for the wolf, because one of the lessons was the dangers of premarital sex. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen Into the Woods, the Sondheim musical.
I've seen it twice.
Okay, yeah. So
Not the movie.
Me a lot of Into the Woods. You know, Little Red Riding Hood scenes with the wolf, where his song is, hello, little girl, and it's very predatory and perverted, really. And then she sings a song of, well, I know things now, because now she's an adult. Mm-hmm. Now that she's had this almost sexual encounter with the wolf, she knows about the world now. She knows more than she did before.
It's a great musical. It's so funny.
It's a great musical. Watch it, Miranda. Don't watch the movie.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
There's a filmed version of the stage version that's really good. Watch that one. Don't watch the movie with Meryl Streep. Watch the stage version.
Wasn't Chris Pine in that movie? Or no, it wasn't Chris Pine.
Chris Pine was the highlight of that movie. He plays Prince Charming.
Yeah,
and he was hysterical.
I'm sure. I love
the best part of the movie. But yeah. So that's why I picked this.
Good pick and interesting theme, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and Angela Carter does a really good job of examining, just again, kind of back to American Mary, just this sort of violence that's perpetrated against women, even if it's passive violence. I mean, the huntsman doesn't rape Rosaline in the woods, but he does get her drunk, and he does use that to take advantage of her in a different way, by beating her to her grandmother's house.
Yeah, I think that if American Mary is on one end of the spectrum, then this one is on the other end of the types of violence that...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely more... And like I said, she goes walking in the woods with this boy from the village, and he just won't take no for an answer, and she finally has to climb a tree to get away from him. I mean, she's just not interested, and he just keeps pushing. Mm-hmm. We've all been there. I mean, I've certainly been on the train and had some guy talking to me, and I finally just get off.
I see it in bars all the time, and I make a point to come up to the women that I know are being harassed and go, what the fuck, what is happening? And I just start talking to them and going, is he seriously doing this right now? And we start talking to each other going, I can't believe this. I just can't believe this. And then he's like, then the guy will get all defensive. And he'll go, I was just trying to be friendly and everything. And I'm like, and I'll say, no, you weren't. The road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works every single time because I don't think women, help women out enough. In America, we're very,
deal with your own problem.
We're in our own bubble and, somebody else's problem. And you don't know these people. They're strangers. Mm-hmm. But I always walk up to them because I feel like there's a bit of solidarity there. It's no matter who these women are, they're in a situation right now that I've been in before. Mm-hmm. And a lot of women have been in before. and it helps. It gets rid of the problem quicker. They could do it themselves, of course, but it would take a lot more of them going, no, really, like, we're not interested, go away.
Yeah.
Exactly. My big problem is anytime I've ever gone to a bar, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, but if I'm there with my boyfriend, oh, well, that's right, Miranda's never been to a bar, I forgot. but if I'm there with my boyfriend, you know, he'll get up and go to the bathroom, and men will come up and try and talk to me. Now, I am clearly there with someone.
Ugh.
And as soon as my boyfriend comes back, it's, I was just saying hi. Like they act like nothing was happening. Like, do you really think I'm gonna, like, leave this guy that I'm clearly here with and, like, go with you?
What bothers me about those situations is that men respect the feelings of other men more than the women.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've gotten to a point when, like, if a guy is, like, asking me, why aren't you interested in me? I have gotten to a point where I don't say, because I used to say, I have a boyfriend, or I'm interested in somebody else, but I'm so fucking sick of the fact that guys only respect the feelings of other guys, and so I'm just, from this point on, just gonna be like, I just don't fucking like you. Like, just get over it. And I hate it because I've gotten to a point where I've had a lot of issues with guy friends of mine, like, getting obsessed, and I've turned into such a bitch because of that. Like, it's really hard for me to give guys a chance at this point because every single time it's been a massive problem. I've had to threaten a few guys with calling the cops before.
You're sick of being verbally manhandled.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that makes you a bitch.
It really is. It's exhausting. And like Miranda said, I mean, if I tell them I'm not interested, please leave me alone, they will keep trying to talk to me.
Yeah.
But as soon as he comes back and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? They're like, oh, I was just saying hi. Like, I was just trying to order a drink and talk while I was at the bar. Mm-hmm. Like, as soon as he comes back, suddenly they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I had a chance to exercise what you were just saying, Miranda, the fact that you don't have to say, no, I already have a boyfriend, because that's another male's authority that matters. Right. It's kind of a funny story. I was in the grocery store parking lot in the middle of the day, for reference. This is just one of many stories. This man comes up to me while I'm putting my groceries in my car, and he says, hey, I was just in there trying to take a piss, and I saw you. That's the opening line, okay?
God.
So we know we have a good
Shakespeare.
We have a winner here. And so I'm just baffled, because, you know, when you're ready for it, it never happens. Yeah. But when you're just, like, at the grocery store. Anyway, so he says, well, I was just wondering if you, like, wanted to go out sometime. And I was like, no. And he goes, and then he starts to get angry.
Yep.
And he says, oh, come on, I don't see a ring on that finger. And I said, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. And he says nothing.
Yeah.
And he just kind of walks away. Because he's never had a woman say that to him before.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but they need to hear it. They really, have you guys seen the video of the woman who just, like, walks circles in New York? And she has, it's just her walking around New York for hours.
Being harassed.
Yeah, and she's getting harassed.
I've seen it.
And I love that video, because she literally just says to guys, like, you need to lose weight, or you're just ugly. Like, she just says it. And, you know, it's kind of harsh, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to be like that. Like, sometime I'm just going to do that. Because, you know, guys don't have a problem with saying, well, you're ugly anyways, or you're
just a
fat
6 out of
anyways.
10.
Yeah, so it's like, why can't we do it anymore? Why can't I just say, well, sorry, you're just not attractive?
You know why you can't do it? Because if you do it, then you're a bitch.
Yep.
Then you're a frigid, sexless bitch.
That's right. I've been called a bitch since I was in, like, junior high, so I think I can handle it at this point.
Men are assertive, women are bossy and bitches. That's
pretty much.
That's what it is.
It's the dumbest thing. I just don't deal with that shit. I don't let people say it to me. I'm like, the second they start to say it, I'm just like, no, and I just kind of go off on them, and they never try it again.
I have a feeling this is going to be 3 rounds of just us getting mad about a different thing.
Probably, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, what you got for us, Miranda? Because now I'm real riled up.
Okay. Well, so I picked The Craft.
It's lighter-hearted.
Yes, it is. It is. I don't know if there's really anything to argue about with this one, but
it's a great movie.
It is. It's so fun. So, for people who haven't seen The Craft, it's about 4 high school girls who 3 of them are interested in witchcraft, and one of them moves into the area, and she is what they call a natural witch, and they kind of adopt her. What?
And it's my horror movie crush. Wait, no. Is it one of the witches that's my horror movie crush? What's her name?
Is it Nancy?
What? No, what's her name? She's in Scream.
Oh, Neve Campbell. Yeah.
Is it Nev? Or Neve?
It is Nev.
Nev.
Oh,
okay.
I've always said Nev.
I can't pronounce
it. Is Nev the girl
who...
Is she the girl who moves in?
No.
No, okay, well, it has no...
scars. She's the one with the scars.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Sorry, but she is, like, my horror movie crush.
Mm-hmm. She does a really good job in this. Okay, so yeah, they kind of adopt our main character. Her name is Sarah, and she is a natural witch, and they realize it because she's able to balance and spin a pencil on a desk in one of the classrooms, which I thought was really, really brave. Like, if I was a witch, I don't know if I would do that in the middle of class, but to each their own, I suppose.
I wonder if it's kind of her tapping her foot thing. Like, she doesn't even know she's doing it. Like,
yeah. That's how I always took it as, is she just is kind of bored and making it spin, and then when she realizes someone's actually looking at her, she's like, oh my god. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and she drops it and everything. Okay, so when they kind of, like, create their little... I think they just call it a circle. Their circle. They make these wishes. They're all different. And the wishes start coming true for all of them, except for Nancy, who is kind of the head witch, because she pretty much just asks for full power of their god, which is Mano or something like that. I don't know if I can...
I'll say with the hysterically terrible French accent.
Yeah, I
like,
don't...
Manon.
Yeah.
They're, like, going for it.
Yeah, after watching that, I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that, but whatever. So she basically asks for this power of their god that they worship. And like I said, they all start coming true except for Nancy's. But eventually Nancy finds a way to what they call invoke the spirit, which is taking in all of those powers. And she becomes very power hungry, and she starts taking control of everything and just doing a lot of crazy stuff. And she tries to kill Sarah because she's thinking about leaving the circle because they've been doing a lot of terrible things. Sarah finds a way to invoke the spirit as well and beats Nancy. The ending is kind of a good versus evil battle, pretty much. You're supposed to basically believe that Sarah is more powerful because she's using her powers for good, and Nancy's using them for evil. And Nancy ends up in the end in a mental institution. Oh my gosh. And all the other girls lose their powers except for Sarah. What I love about this movie that I think a lot of people don't like is that it's an honest portrayal of young women in high school. People have issues, I've noticed, with movies that portray what it's like for a young girl in high school, because it's not pretty. It's not really, like, anything to be proud of, I guess, but it's reality, you know, and the truth hurts. You know, I'd rather we see movies where we see an accurate representation of what it's like to be in high school than for us to pretend that high school is easier for young women and everybody accept that. So there was an article that I found when I was doing research, and I didn't write down the author's name, so now I feel bad. But it's easy to find. It's on the Blumhouse website, actually. And it was titled, "The Craft is Not a Feminist Horror Movie." And it was basically because of what I just said. Everything I had issues with in the article is the fact that they didn't like the honest portrayal of what I consider an honest portrayal of what it's like for young women in high school.
How is that not feminist? Like, what are the reasons?
So one of the reasons was because of the wishes that the young women make. So the one that Neve Campbell plays, Neve Campbell, the character that she plays, I believe her name is Bonnie, she wishes to be beautiful. And so, first of all, they were saying, well, that's kind of shallow. Well, I mean, when you're a young woman in high school, like, don't you want to be beautiful? Don't you want to be that popular girl? I mean, when I went through high school, I did a lot of attempting to conform. And to me, that's what this movie was about. What it's like to be a young woman in high school and you're different and the things you'll do to conform so people will like you.
Right.
And that's one of those things. She has those scars and she's hiding her whole life and she wishes to be beautiful. And so her wish comes true. And then one of the other girls, she's subjected to bullying. Rochelle. Yeah, she's subjected to bullying, and it's racist bullying. And her wish is that she can get back at this girl, basically. And she succeeds. And again, I don't see anything wrong with that portrayal, because, again, when you're different and you're a young woman in high school, and you're being bullied, I mean, that's kind of what you want. You know,
right.
Like, you want to get back at them. You want to take them down, basically.
So basically, this article is expecting these young women, to be perfect.
Yeah,
to be perfect. No one's a perfect feminist. Like, as far as the beauty thing goes, we're all subjected to the pressure of society to, especially in high school.
Oh God, yeah.
To be what everyone else is. And
well, and I think it is a valid point that this is also a private high school.
Yeah.
And everyone in the high school appears to be relatively wealthy and all, like you guys said, pretty much the same. I mean, these girls are so clearly the outcasts. I mean, they purposefully, like the people who did the costumes for the movie, purposefully make them not dress like anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, even though they're all wearing uniforms, they, do their own thing with their uniforms and their jewelry and that kind of thing, just to show how much they stick out from everybody else in the school.
Yeah. And that's something that I kind of wrote down, too. Something that I appreciated from the movie was the wardrobe. Not just because they were, these awesome punk chicks at times, but also that they didn't care, what people expected them to wear. I mean, a lot of the times, some of the girls were just, wearing what would be considered unattractive clothing, that has no form to it. And that's something that I really appreciated because, again, there's a lot of that kind of pressure in high school, too, that you look hot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
all the time.
Who doesn't love a good oversized cardigan?
Come on. Kidding. No kidding. Okay.
You just gotta, be comfortable.
Yeah,
because it's not comfortable to be what people consider to be attractive.
Right.
It's not comfortable.
Right. Well, when I graduated from high school, I, went the exact opposite of who I was. Because I stopped wearing makeup. I cut my hair off. I just started wearing comfy clothes all the time. I used to wear dresses a lot in high school. I hated dresses, but I wore them all the time because I thought I should. And when I got to college, it was leggings and t-shirts and giant sweatshirts. and it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself because now I don't feel like I need to wear makeup. I don't wear makeup that much anymore.
And that's who you are. I mean, I think one of the issues that I would have with that article that you brought up is this idea that, if you want to be pretty, or if you care about the way you look and want to wear makeup or whatever, well, then you're not really a feminist, because then you're just giving in to society. The whole point is that you should let women do what they want.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I like wearing makeup. I mean, I have not worn makeup in... How long have I been pregnant? Forever. So 20 years, however long it's been. Because I'm too tired. But before that, I wore makeup every single day. Mm-hmm. It's because I liked wearing it. I didn't care. My boyfriend certainly does not. He didn't even know half the time that I was wearing makeup. But I knew, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And I thought I looked better. And I didn't really care if anyone else thought I looked better, but I did.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make me not a feminist. That doesn't mean that that's an unfeminist thing to want to wear makeup and look nice.
Right.
So I would have that same issue with that article, that it's saying that by wanting to be pretty and wanting to look nice, somehow that makes you a bad feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
It's funny we didn't feel the need to define what we consider to be feminism at the beginning of this. Two things. One, feminism, I think, No, feminism is men and women are equal. And
Right.
2, let women make their own choices about themselves and what they're going to do and leave them alone.
Right.
Like, that's
Let
what
them
feminism
live.
is.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And
That's all it is.
I've had a lot of issues just in the feminist community of other feminists yelling at me and telling me I'm not a feminist about different things. And that's something that really gets on my nerves, because it's like, that's not even the point. You're missing the whole point. You know, the whole point of feminism is that I have my own voice, don't I? So why are you trying to silence my voice, you know? It's, I think, even a hot topic within feminism, because everybody defines it themselves. And that's fine. Feminism is individualized. It's what you think it is. It's what empowers you. But you don't need to force it onto other people, because different things empower different people.
Well, I think the basis of feminism is those two things I just defined, and add things if I forgot. I don't.
No, I think you're right.
But then within those two very, very broad statements, women disagree on things. My only issue is when feminism becomes misandry.
Yes.
And it becomes not the equality of men and women and lifting women up to be at the level of men, but a hatred of men in general. That makes it, not only is that not what feminism is, it's a totally different thing, but it makes us look bad.
Yes,
it makes because people just wash over all feminists are that.
It does, but I think that I personally think that misandry is pretty much an imaginary concept. Misogyny actively harms women. Misandry hurts people's fifis. I mean...
Well, they're two totally different things. The consequences are totally different.
I think a lot of the quote-unquote man-hating that you see online where people are like, men are terrible, it's sarcasm. I mean, I've certainly said it. I forgot the other night that my boyfriend was a man, and I said something like that, and he was just like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, sorry, I forgot. Because, I don't mean it.
Yeah.
Really mean that all men are horrible.
Yeah.
But, a lot of them are.
Yeah, a lot of men are horrible, but not all men are horrible.
Then you get into the not all men. And, of course, when people say all men are terrible, they don't mean literally every man that's ever lived.
I think there are people who do hate all men. I think it's something that happens from having bad experiences with men.
Extreme fringe people who do think that.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Just like with any group. Do I think that men who are super sexist literally hate every single woman? No, they probably love their mom.
And that's the extent of it.
Men who are sexist, they have daughters and they love their daughters. But they don't like a lot of other women. I think that man-hating is a bad stereotype about feminists.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that there's not as much of it as, the mainstream, I guess you could say, like to say that. Because that's a convenient way to tear feminists down. Is, you just hate men.
And it's like they still find a way to make it about themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We can't even have feminism to ourselves.
No.
They still have to be the center of attention.
Yeah, they do.
They can't let go.
And they call it new wave feminism. Have you heard that? That's what they call it. They call it new wave feminism.
Is that equated with third wave feminism? Or is that a different thing?
I don't know. They say it so many different ways. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But basically they try to say, that's what feminism is now, is misandry. And it is so common. I see it everywhere, people saying that.
But they've always said that. When my mom was involved with one of the first big feminist movements in, the 60s and 70s, that was the thing. Oh, you're just feminazis. You just wish all men would die. You just hate all men. And that's not what it's about.
No,
it's not.
No.
And of course, like I said, you do have fringe people that think that. Of course you do. But in any group you have that.
Yeah.
Well, and
you're not a hive mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Not at all. I think it exists, but I just don't think... I didn't mean to say that its existence is bad for men.
Mm-hmm.
The existence of it, if it's, with the people who are that way, is it's bad for women.
Yeah.
So it just comes right back onto
Right.
us anyway.
Because unfortunately, that's an easy thing for men who don't like feminism to latch onto.
Okay, so is that how you say it? It's
Misandry.
Misandry?
Yeah.
I always read it. That's
I
how you
think
can
so.
tell you've
Misandry.
only read a term online or like in
Yeah,
a book, because I have no idea how to
I
pronounce
think people
it.
say it both ways, though. I've heard misandry and I've heard misandry. I don't know if there's...
It sounds like hating mice.
It does.
But it
God, I
is-
hate all mice.
We're so far off topic.
I know.
Not really. I mean, we're doing an episode about feminism, aren't we?
Oh, but can we? Do we have? I don't know if we can cram everything about feminism into it, which is kind of what we've been trying to do.
No,
because
but-
it just keeps going down. You know.
But again, like, this stuff needs to be talked about, I think.
does.
Like, it's so important.
The craft is just bringing me back to playing light as a feather, stiff as a board at all of my junior high sleepovers.
Oh my god, I
It
remember doing that
works,
too.
man. Don't know how.
And, like, I don't know about you guys. Okay, so I am older than you guys. So I am up. What year did this movie come out?
1996.
Okay, so I was 10 when this movie came out. So
I wasn't
by
born.
the time it would have. I know. I don't think Miranda was even here yet. By the time this movie obviously would have come to VHS to the point where we were watching it at sleepovers, I would have been, like 12. And every girl I know who watched this movie at 12 went through this period where, like, you really wanted to be a witch. Like, real bad. Like,
Yeah.
I remember getting on, like, because we had, like, AOL, getting on, like, AOL and Googling witchcraft and all that kind of stuff, and getting on, like, those old, like, GeoCities websites about, like, how to be a Wiccan.
You know, that's the thing. Sorry, I'm gonna be Miss Grumble now again, but its portrayal of what Wicca is like starkly inaccurate
Yeah.
and kind of stupid.
Of course it is.
But nobody knows that.
They don't call them Wiccans, though.
No, but it's based on Wicca. It's the
Yeah.
craft. That's what they call Wicca.
Okay.
They always talk about the circle
Okay,
and what the craft is and isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's "and ye harm none, do what you will," which is
Yeah.
from the Wiccan Read.
Okay.
It's clearly supposed to be Wicca.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's so much harmful to Wicca. It's just an annoyance to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a
It's
Wiccan. I
stereotypical
dabbled.
portrayal.
Yeah, it's kind of just. I mean, why?
It is.
I want to see a real movie about, because it seems like every time they make a movie about witches that's supposed to be Wicca, they just grossly appropriate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to see like a real fictional movie about real Wicca, because I think it
Yeah.
would still make a good,
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have all this supernatural awesome stuff in it like that, but like once, just make a movie that's real, you
Yeah.
know, like real, like what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not to say that I don't have this movie on my shelf right now.
It's such a
It's
good
just,
movie.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love this movie. It always brings me back to the 90s.
I
Different time.
always think like this movie is like my dream girl gang.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's goals. It really is. I'm gonna get back into my notes so I can get back on track. So basically, all of the girls are like I said, they're all different from the rest of the high school population, like we've talked about, and so they actually use the magic to conform. And everybody looks at them; they call them witches, and so it's kind of the thing that makes them different. But they use it to conform. And it's something that, like I said, we all want this in high school. It may not be right. It may not be helpful. It may not be good for us, but it's what we want. And it's what a lot of women or young girls strive for in high school. And it turns on them, which often happens, again, in high school. You know, the popular girls, just the popular people in general, tend to have a really hard time that people don't usually talk about. Like, it's pretty god-awful for them, too. So conformity actually does absolutely nothing for you. And that's something that I appreciated about this movie, too, because you have Sarah, who doesn't want to conform. At first, she does, but once she sees what's happening, she wants to back out right away. And so it doesn't hurt her. She keeps her magic, and and really hardly anything bad happens to her, and it was her desire to not conform. At least that's what I got out of it. And also there's the narrative of a victim turning into a bully, which that's Nancy, because Nancy has been bullied both at home and at school for the majority of her life, basically. She has a stepfather who is very abusive to her and her mother. And she may not be a good role model, which is something that this article that I talked about mentioned, but she's not supposed to be. She's the villain. And
right. Nobody watches this movie and wants to be Nancy.
Yeah. And it shows, like, that women can be monsters too. And that's something that I love to see. It may not be satisfying. Well, actually, I think it's satisfying. But I think some women see that and they're like, oh my God, another thing to make women look bad. But women are monsters too. And, like, we have to stop kidding ourselves. We need to be honest with this stuff. And women can be monsters too. And she takes that narrative of being a victim and she turns it into being a bully, which...
American Mary?
Yeah, which, yes. And it's realistic to high school as well. We see a lot of that. Doesn't have to do anything to do with feminism, but it also shows how destructive, like, power-hungry people are, which I think that's really relevant in the world right now, just saying. I'm not going to get into it.
I wonder why.
and it doesn't matter who it is. Like, anybody who is power-hungry is going to cause problems, is going to be destructive. It doesn't matter who they are. And it's also, like, a really good coming-to-age story. Before we started this, I was kind of talking about how it reminded me so much of Ginger Snaps and Jennifer's Body, because it kind of does the same thing with the whole coming-to-age story. And it's a play on the past, how strong women were witches. I mean, literally, like, women who were just pretty much just strong women were considered witches, and it's still a thing. It's still an issue. I mean,
I've never read Women Who Run with the Wolves.
No.
Okay, you would like it. That's kind of what the book is about, is like myths and how in the ancient myths, you know, the witches and the crones, the old women, they were the heroes of the stories.
Yeah.
The virgin was a moron because she was a dumb virgin who'd never, like, experienced life.
Yeah.
But, of course, when men got a hold of the stories, it became, oh, well, the crone is old and scary and icky, and the witches are powerful and scary. The dumb virgin, though, she's pure because she doesn't know anything, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
So she's the heroine of the story now. So you would like that book a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I mean,
it's really good.
Okay, so I basically just have on my notes, sorry guys, but we aren't witches just because we take what we want, which is basically what we were just talking about. Like, I don't even know how to verbalize it anymore, because we, like, just had this conversation, so it's kind of pointless to say again, but basically just that. Like, they're taking what they want, they're doing what they want, regardless. And, of course, that makes them bad guys. It makes them evil. It makes them devil worshippers. It makes them witches.
And sorry, but witch is not supposed to be a bad term.
No.
It's not. Witch is not a bad term. It's not. I think we should kind of reclaim that.
Yeah.
Not even just in a religious sort of way, but in a historical sort of way.
Yeah.
Witch has a negative connotation. It should not.
Right.
That's what they called women who had... Well, I think one of the first things we said in when we were talking about the witch is she probably had a mild knowledge of, like
healing.
Herbal healing.
Yeah.
And so that's what was wrong with her, was she knew how to do... She was someone who was well-read and defied societal expectations and had more power than people because she could poison somebody, she could heal somebody, she could deliver a baby, she could... You know, that's what a witch is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or just women who didn't conform to society's standards in general. I mean, I know that, you know, you think about the Salem witch trials. I mean, who were the first people that were convicted? You had Tituba, who was a slave. Obviously, she was not white. She was black. And then you have one, I can't remember if it was Sarah Good or the other one. There was another Sarah, who was homeless. And I believe had some, I mean, I'm sure they would have called her touched, but had some, you know, mental issues. And so, of course she was an easy target, because she didn't fit in with their society. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another thing, is it was an easy way to target women who didn't fit into I mean, even if they didn't have knowledge of healing, but women who just didn't fit into society for one way or the other.
And it really began with a bunch of teenage girls pointing fingers at each other. It really was
all
that.
A land dispute.
And
two of my ancestors were killed in the Salem witch trials.
Really?
So.
Wow.
Yes, Rebecca Nurse and Mary Esty.
They were your relatives.
They are.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty exciting.
Or they are.
We traced our whole family history back to them.
That's
Yeah, they were both killed.
Wow.
And Rebecca Nurse being killed is actually what kind of started to tip the scales, because she was older. She was like in her, I'm going to say like 70s, which of course for that time was extremely old. And she was like a extremely pious, respected member of the community, and she got convicted and hung. And after that, everybody was kind of like, are you sure? Like, because she was like the best of the best in Salem.
Oh my
God. It was
God.
a land dispute because the Putnams wanted her land.
Jeez.
That's why I don't visit the Putnam Museum in Davenport, because they're descended from those people.
Oh, shit.
Oh my God. You know
the
what?
more you know, guys.
I almost wore this tank top I have. It's just like from this feminist website.
I was totally gonna mention that.
I had it over there, but I got hot and I took off my regular tank top, and it says, "We are the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn," and you are, like, literally. It's not just metaphorical.
They're related to Rebecca Nurse, and then Mary Esty was her sister. And then there was also Sarah Town. And Sarah Town was arrested, but they ended the trials before she could be convicted.
Wow. Oh my God, can you imagine that being, like, on that cutoff?
Yeah.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
Well, and there were women who were convicted, but were not executed because they outlawed spectral evidence. So... But yeah. So what do you know? I've been to the Rebecca Nurse homestead in Salem.
Oh, that must have been so awesome.
It was very cool. And we were like, oh, we're related to her. And they gave us like a really special tour. And there's a lot of, I have pictures somewhere. It was really fun.
That's one of the places I just would love to go.
It's very fun. It's very interesting.
Do you have anything else in your notes?
I think that's pretty much it.
I think before we close, we should read off what our Patreon benefits are.
Oh, okay.
I think we should talk about, like, if you donate, this is what you get, so people know, while they're listening, because this is a brand new thing for us.
We have 5 different tiers on our Patreon, and they all have super fun names. So the first tier is a little fledgling vampire, and that is $1 or more a month that you would have to donate. And with that, you get a shout-out in the credits of the next episode, so when you donate, we'll give you a shout-out on the show. The next tier is the Barnabas Collins tier, and that is $2 a month, and you receive the shout-out just like the last one, and you will get access to sneak peeks of the next episode. You'll find out what we're going to do, and we're not going to release those anymore with the episodes. They'll just be a Patreon exclusive. So the third tier is the Brat Prince tier, and that is $3 or more a month. And in that tier, you get both of the things from the last two, and you also get the opportunity to vote on future episode topics, which is super fun. I think it's super fun.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. And then our fourth tier is the Nosferatu tier, and that is $5 a month. You get all of the previous things, like the other
perks.
Yeah, you get all the other perks. That's the word I was looking for. And then you also get access to live episodes. So what we're thinking we're going to do with that is we're going to do like a sort of Periscope thing. We're not 100% certain how we're going to do it yet, but we'll have it figured out.
Is it going to be video recording? I can't remember.
That's what Periscope
At
is.
least you'll get to see me and Miranda. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm
live,
sure we will.
Live episode recording, so you'll get to see all the stuff we cut out because we thought we were being too, what's the word for it?
Oh, I don't know. Is there a word for it?
Having too many opinions? I don't know.
We go off on a lot of tangents.
If you can't think of a lot of bad things to say or like to ways to describe it, then I guess then we're not actually doing anything wrong. So, but you get to see all the exclusive behind the scenes things that we cut out.
Yeah, like last episode, we had like a 10-minute discussion about Tom Hiddleston that got cut out. So, we'll get fun stuff like that.
Oh, Tom.
Okay, and then our last tier is the Queen.
Tom Hiddleston.
Our last tier is the Queen of the Damned tier, and that is $10 or more a month. You get all the previous perks, plus you get an opportunity to join a private Facebook group that's going to be a movie or book club. So it's going to be one of those things that's like, hey, we're going to watch this movie tonight. Let's all talk about it as we watch it together. Or, you know, we'll have a book that we all read and we talk about it and stuff like that. So yeah, those are all of our tiers. I think they're all super fun. I'm really excited to get going on them. Oh,
Me
and
too.
if we get to 15 patrons, we are going to do a local ghost hunt with one of the paranormal groups around here. So yeah, and I think we're gonna launch that by the time this episode's out. It'll be launched.
Yep. So we'll have the Patreon up, and there will be like a welcome video we just shot, super high res and everything. You guys are so lucky.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy.
So
yeah, it's a lovely video.
yeah. So yeah, then check that out, and thanks for listening. And just remember, you can find us on Podbean. You can still find us on SoundCloud. Sound. I need to eat something.
I do too.
I just felt my blood sugar drop.
Oh,
like
really?
I just felt it happen.
Jeez.
I've
been like kind of like shaky the whole time, but I've just been kind of like sitting still.
You can still find us on SoundCloud, but we kind of jumped ship there because they're not going to be around much longer.
Going away.
Yeah. So we are on Podbean now, but you can still find us for the time being at both places. Make sure to review us on iTunes and drop by our Facebook page, give us a like.
Yeah.
Some other places, some other stuff, some other things.
Lots of things. We're everywhere, basically. We're still on YouTube. I don't know why we're still on YouTube.
People are like watching those videos too.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. I didn't know people watched podcasts on YouTube, but
because you're not watching anything. But anyway,
it's a thing, I guess.
It's great.
And we are on Stitcher now too. I know I announced that a while ago, but yeah, we're on Stitcher, which I know is a pretty popular place. So yeah, I think that's everything. Okay.
Are you ready to eat and go to bed? Because I am.
Yes. Yes.
24 hours a day.
Okay. All right. We're done. Good night, guys.